Hello there, and welcome to Sleep Science, where we explore fascinating science in a quiet, relaxing way that helps your mind unwind and drift off to sleep. Before we begin tonight's journey, feel free to share what time it is and where you're listening from. It's always wonderful to imagine these gentle science stories drifting across time zones, finding their way to cozy bedrooms and quiet corners around the world. Tonight, we're going to wander into a question that's both simple and extraordinary. What if Earth had two moons? Picture stepping outside on any given evening and seeing not one pale companion hanging in the sky, but two. How would that change everything? The tides, the nights, the very rhythm of life itself? We'll explore how a second moon might have formed, how it would dance with its sibling across our sky, and how different our world, our stories, and our dreams might be under the gentle glow of twin lunar lights. So settle in, perhaps glance up at our solitary moon if you can see it tonight, and let's imagine together what it would be like to live in a world where the night sky holds twice the wonder, twice the mystery, and twice the quiet magic. Long before there were any moons at all, Earth was having a very bad day. Picture our planet 4.5 billion years ago, spinning much faster than it does now, completing a day in just 6 hours. The whole world glowed cherry red from the heat. Volcanoes erupted everywhere. The air was thick with steam and poisonous gases. And then, something the size of Mars came hurtling through space and smashed right into us. This isn't science fiction, this really happened. The impact was so violent it threw massive chunks of Earth into space, along with pieces of the object that hit us. Some scientists think it was called Theia, which sounds almost gentle for something that nearly destroyed our planet. But destruction, sometimes, leads to creation. All that hot rock and metal spinning around Earth eventually cooled and clumped together. Gravity pulled the pieces into a ball, and there it was, our moon. One beautiful silver companion that's been lighting our nights ever since. But imagine if the story had gone a little differently. What if there had been enough material for two moons? Or what if, millions of years later, Earth captured a wandering asteroid and convinced it to stay? There's no need to worry about the exact physics here. Just let your mind drift with the possibility. A second moon could have formed in several ways. Perhaps the original impact created two separate debris rings around Earth, each one slowly gathering into its own sphere. The smaller moon might have been made from lighter materials, giving it a different color, maybe more golden or grey compared to our familiar silver companion. Or picture this. Long after Earth had settled down and life was just beginning to stir in the oceans, a large asteroid came wandering through the solar system. Instead of rushing past or crashing down, it arrived at just the right speed and angle to be caught by Earth's gravity. Slowly, gently, it settled into an orbit, becoming our second moon. Feel the difference this would make. Step outside on any clear night and look up. Instead of one moon casting its familiar glow, you'd see two lights in the sky. Sometimes they'd be close together, like celestial siblings holding hands. Other times, they'd be on opposite sides of the sky, as if they were playing an eternal game of tag. The smaller moon might be fast and restless, racing across the sky in just a few days. The larger one could be stately and slow, taking its time to complete each orbit. Together, they'd create a constantly changing light show that would make every night feel different. There's something peaceful about imagining this scene. Two gentle companions watching over Earth, taking turns to light the darkness, creating shadows that dance and shift in ways our ancestors could never have predicted. The night would never be the same twice. And here's a lovely thought. Those two moons would be ancient witnesses to everything that happened on Earth. They'd have watched the first rains fill the oceans, seen dinosaurs roam and disappear, observed the rise of forests and the spread of human civilizations. Two patient, silent friends keeping Earth company through all the long, slow changes that shaped our world. Two moons in the same sky is a bit like having two cats in the same house. They need to figure out who goes where. But instead of claiming favorite sunny spots on the windowsill, moons have to work out their invisible dance through space without bumping into each other. When you have two large objects orbiting the same planet, gravity becomes a very busy choreographer. Our moon already tugs at Earth, causing the tides to rise and fall twice a day. Add a second moon, and suddenly there are multiple gravitational conversations happening at once. Picture the three of them, Earth and its two companions, like a family learning to live together. Earth, the large parent in the middle, holds onto both moons with invisible threads of gravity. But the moons also pull on each other, creating a delicate balance that has to be just right, or someone might get flung out of the family entirely. The beauty of this arrangement would be in its rhythm. Let your mind wander with this idea, orbital resonance. It sounds complicated, but it's really just like musical harmony. When two notes sound good together, we call it harmony. When two moons orbit in patterns that complement each other, that's resonance. Perhaps our larger moon would take 28 days to circle Earth, just like our real moon does now. The smaller moon might dance around us in exactly 14 days, completing 2 orbits for every one of its bigger sibling. Or maybe one would take 7 days, rushing around Earth 4 times, while the larger moon completed just 1 stately circle. These patterns would lock the moons into a stable relationship. They'd never collide because their orbits would be synchronized, like dancers who know exactly when to step forward and when to step back. There's no need to follow all the mathematical details, just let the image settle in your mind. 2 celestial bodies moving in perfect, eternal harmony. You'd feel this harmony down on Earth too. Some nights, both moons would be full at the same time, flooding the world with silver light bright enough to read by. Other nights, they'd be new together, leaving the stars to shine in a truly dark sky that we rarely see anymore. And then there would be the magical in-between times. One moon waxing while the other wanes, one rising in the east as the other sets in the west. Crescents facing each other like parentheses around the darkness, or chasing each other across the dome of night like cosmic friends playing follow the leader. The smaller moon would probably appear to move much faster across the sky. If you lay on a blanket and watched for just an hour or two, you might actually see it drift past stars, while the larger moon would seem almost stationary, dignified and unhurried. This faster moon would create its own special relationship with the seasons. It might align with the sun at different times of year, creating little monthly cycles within the larger seasonal rhythm. Farmers would have learned to plant by one moon and harvest by another. Sailors would have known which moon to trust for navigation and which one to use for timing their journeys. But gravity is patient and persistent. Over thousands and thousands of years, the gravitational interactions would slowly change the orbits. The moons might drift closer together or farther apart. They might exchange energy, one speeding up while the other slows down. It's a dance that never truly ends, always shifting, always finding new patterns. Sometimes the arrangement might become unstable. The smaller moon could be pulled away from Earth entirely, sent wandering back into deep space to find a new home. Or in the far, far future, the 2 moons might gradually spiral toward each other, eventually touching in a gentle collision that would create one larger moon and a spectacular light show. But for now, in our imagined world, they share the sky peacefully. 2 patient guardians keeping watch over Earth, their gravitational embrace keeping our planet stable, their light keeping our nights beautiful, their presence reminding us that even in the vastness of space, companionship is possible. The ocean already has opinions about when to come and go, but two moons would give it some very mixed signals. Right now, our single moon pulls at the water twice a day, creating high tide and low tide in a rhythm that's been steady for billions of years. Sea creatures have learned to trust this pattern. Fishermen know when to launch their boats. Families plan beach visits around the tide tables. But imagine the ocean's confusion with two gravitational partners tugging at its edges. Sometimes both moons would be pulling from the same direction, creating tides so high they'd flood coastal areas that have been dry for centuries. Other times they'd pull from opposite sides, almost cancelling each other out, leaving harbors strangely still and tide pools exposed for days. Let your mind drift to a coastal morning in this two-moon world. You wake up and check the tide chart, but it's not a simple table anymore. It's a complex calendar that shows the positions of both moons, their combined effects, and predictions that change daily. Today might bring a super high tide at noon and then an eerily flat sea by evening. Picture the smell of salt air and seaweed as you walk along a beach that never looks the same twice. Yesterday, the waves crashed far up onto the dunes. Today, the water has retreated so far that you can walk on sand that's usually 20 feet underwater. Shells and starfish dot the exposed ocean floor like treasures left behind by a retreating army of water. There's something magical about these extreme low tides. Caves that are usually flooded become accessible. Tide pools that are normally shallow become deep, clear windows into underwater worlds. Children would grow up knowing that some days the ocean gives up its secrets, revealing hidden landscapes that most generations never see. But the super high tides would be equally extraordinary. Water would surge up rivers farther than ever before, bringing dolphins and seals into areas where they're usually strangers. Salt water would temporarily claim freshwater marshes, creating brief, unusual ecosystems where river fish and ocean fish might meet. The sound of these extreme tides would be different too. When both moons pull together, the incoming tide might arrive as a gentle but unstoppable wall of water, hissing and gurgling as it reclaims the land. When the moons oppose each other, the water might be so still you could hear every tiny lap against the rocks, every bubble popping in the foam. Marine animals would have had to evolve completely different strategies. Crabs might develop the ability to survive in dry conditions for much longer periods, since they'd never know how long the extreme low tides might last. Sea anemones could have evolved to be much more flexible, able to handle both the crushing pressure of super high tides and the drying exposure of extended low tides. Fish that depend on tidal movements for feeding would have developed more complex internal clocks. Some might follow the rhythm of the faster moon, others the slower one. This could create entirely separate ecosystems sharing the same stretch of coast but living by different lunar schedules. Human coastal communities would be both more adaptable and more cautious. Houses near the shore might be built on stilts that are much taller than anything we use today. Harbors would need to accommodate a much wider range of water levels, with docks that can rise and fall dramatically, or boats that can be pulled far inland when necessary. There's no need to worry about the engineering details. Just picture the rhythm of life in these places. People would have learned to read the sky as carefully as they read the water. They'd know by looking at the positions of both moons whether tomorrow would bring floods or drought, whether it would be a good day for fishing from the shore or a day to take the boat far from land. The emotional rhythm of coastal life would be different too. There would be times when both moons are dark and the tides barely move for days. The ocean would feel almost like a lake, peaceful and predictable. Then there would be periods when the moons align and the tides become wild, unpredictable, dangerous, but also magnificent. Children growing up in this world would never take the ocean for granted. They'd learn early that water is powerful, that it can be both generous and overwhelming, and that the dance between moon and sea is something beautiful, complicated, and never quite the same twice. Just let that feeling settle with you. A world where the ocean keeps secrets and reveals them according to the complex rhythm of two moons, where every coastal day brings a new surprise, and where the simple act of walking by the water connects you to a celestial dance happening hundreds of thousands of miles above your head. Close your eyes and imagine the most beautiful night sky you've ever seen, then double it. In our two-moon world, every evening would be a different kind of magic. Some nights would glow so bright you could read a book outside at midnight. Others would be mysteriously dim, with only crescents of light chasing each other between the stars. Picture stepping out of your house just as the sun sets. The western sky still holds the last orange glow of daylight, but in the east, both moons are rising. The larger one, full and silver, climbs slowly above the horizon like a patient grandmother. The smaller one, perhaps golden or grey, dances ahead of it, eager and quick. As full darkness settles, you realize you don't need a flashlight. The combined light of two full moons floods everything with a gentle blue-white glow that makes the whole world look like it's covered in soft snow. Shadows are crisp and dark, but there are also double shadows where the light from both moons creates overlapping patterns on the ground. Trees cast not one shadow but two, sometimes parallel, sometimes crossing like an X. Your own shadow might split and merge as you walk, creating a strange but beautiful dance at your feet. There's no need to understand the geometry of it all. Just let yourself feel the wonder of moving through a world painted by twin lights. But not every night would be so bright. Let your mind wander to an evening when both moons are new, hiding their faces in the darkness. On these nights, the stars would shine with an intensity we rarely see in our modern world. The Milky Way would stretch across the sky like a river of light, and you could see satellites moving like slow shooting stars between the constellations. Then there would be the in-between nights, when the moons play tricks with shadow and light. One moon full, one moon dark. Or two crescents, thin as fingernail clippings, hanging in different parts of the sky like quotation marks around the night. Sometimes they'd be close enough together to make the darkness between them feel cozy and intimate. Other times, they'd be on opposite horizons, as if they were keeping watch over the whole world. The quality of moonlight itself would feel different depending on which moon was shining. The larger moon might cast the cool, familiar silver light we know, making everything look peaceful and dreamlike. The smaller moon, if it were made of different materials, might have a warmer glow, more golden, making night feel almost like a gentle sunset that never ends. Children would grow up with an entirely different relationship to darkness. They'd never fear the night because it would rarely be truly dark. Even when both moons were thin crescents, there would usually be enough combined light to see by. Night games would be more elaborate. Evening walks would be safer and more common. But it would also change how we feel about bright light. A single full moon night might feel dim and melancholy compared to the brilliant double moon nights. We'd learn to appreciate the subtle differences in lighting the way wine connoisseurs learn to taste different vintages. The emotional rhythm of the months would be completely transformed. Instead of one cycle from new moon to full moon and back, there would be multiple cycles overlapping. Some months might have several super bright nights when both moons are full. Other months might be dominated by single moon nights, creating a more moody, romantic atmosphere. Photography would be completely different too. Night photographers would have a much wider range of natural lighting to work with. Portraits could be taken by moonlight without special equipment. Landscapes would have depth and drama that we can barely imagine, with multiple light sources creating complex plays of highlight and shadow. And then there would be the nights when the moons align in special ways. Perhaps once or twice a year, they might appear to touch each other in the sky, creating the illusion of a single, enormous moon that glows more brightly than anything we've ever seen. These would be festival nights, celebrated in every culture, marked on every calendar. The very concept of night would become more fluid. Instead of day and night, we might think in terms of sun time, single moon time, and double moon time. Each would have its own feeling, its own appropriate activities, its own place in the rhythm of life. There's something deeply comforting about imagining a world where the night sky offers so much variety, so much beauty, so many different kinds of gentle light to guide us through the darkness. A world where looking up would always bring a small surprise, a new arrangement of familiar friends, a fresh painting in silver and gold across the black canvas of space. Plants and animals have been using the moon as their calendar for millions of years, but 2 moons would be like getting homework from 2 different teachers. Every living thing on Earth has learned to trust the steady rhythm of our single moon. Flowers know when to bloom, fish know when to spawn. Even humans have internal clocks that tick along with the lunar cycle. But imagine life trying to figure out which moon to follow when there are 2 of them giving different signals. Some creatures might evolve to follow the fast moon, others the slow one. This could create 2 completely separate biological calendars running at the same time on the same planet. Picture a forest in this 2-moon world. Let your mind wander through trees that have learned to dance to different drummers. Some flowers might bloom by the rhythm of the larger, slower moon, opening their petals in a stately 28-day cycle, just like lunar calendars we know. But other plants, perhaps the smaller wildflowers or fast-growing vines, might follow the quick moon, blooming and fading in rapid cycles that change the look of the forest every week. The smell of this forest would be constantly shifting too. Instead of having one season when everything blooms at once, there would be overlapping waves of fragrance. Jasmine following one moon, roses following another, creating a complex perfume that changes not just with the seasons, but with the intricate dance of 2 lunar cycles. Animals would face even more interesting choices. Birds that migrate might split into 2 groups, some following one moon's timing, others trusting the second moon's schedule. Picture spring arriving not as one great wave of returning birds, but as a series of smaller waves spread throughout the season, each following its own celestial conductor. Sea turtles, who already use the moon to time their egg-laying, might have evolved into 2 completely separate populations. Some would emerge from the ocean when the bright moon is full, laying their eggs in the silver light. Others might prefer the dimmer moon, coming ashore when the smaller moon is at its brightest, but the larger one is dark, seeking the safety of less obvious lighting. There's something beautiful about imagining tide pools where different creatures follow different schedules. Barnacles opening to feed by one moon's rhythm, while sea anemones extend their tentacles according to another moon's timing. The same stretch of rocky shore would have activity at all hours, with some creatures active when others are resting, creating a 24-hour cycle of life that never really stops. Human biology would be fascinating in this world. Our bodies already respond to lunar cycles in subtle ways. Women's reproductive cycles, sleep patterns, and even mood changes seem connected to the moon's rhythm. With 2 moons, humans might have evolved entirely different internal clocks. Perhaps some people would be fast moon people, naturally active and alert during the smaller moon cycles. Others might be slow moon people, feeling their best energy during the larger moon's phases. This could create natural variations in when people prefer to work, sleep, or socialize that go far beyond our simple morning person or night person categories. Children might naturally sort themselves into lunar types as they grow. Fast moon children could be energetic and quick to learn, with shorter attention spans but bursts of intense creativity. Slow moon children might be more thoughtful and steady, better at long-term projects and deep thinking. But there's no need to worry about which type you might be. Just let your mind rest with the idea that human diversity could be even richer and more natural in a world where there are more biological rhythms to choose from. The timing of human activities would be beautifully complex. Instead of everyone following the same work week, different communities might organize their schedules around different lunar cycles. Some towns might be bustling with activity when others are quiet and restful. Markets might open and close according to which moon was favorable for trade. Farmers would have learned to plant different crops by different moons. Quick-growing vegetables might follow the fast moon, while fruit trees and grains could follow the slow moon's more patient rhythm. Gardens would have multiple harvests throughout the year, creating abundance that spread more evenly across the seasons. Even our emotional rhythms might be more varied and forgiving. Instead of everyone feeling the same seasonal depression or spring energy at the same time, these feelings would be spread out, allowing communities to support each other through different phases of emotional cycles. The sleep patterns alone would create a world that never truly sleeps. While some people are following one moon into their deepest rest, others are following the other moon into their most alert time. Night shifts wouldn't feel like punishment. They'd just be another natural rhythm for a different type of person. Picture falling asleep in this world, knowing that while you rest under the gentle light of your preferred moon, others are peacefully awake under theirs, and that this quiet, natural diversity would create a planet where life flows in multiple beautiful rhythms, all of them as natural as breathing, all of them as old as time itself. Right now, night workers know they'll have some dark, quiet hours, but 2 moons would mean the night shift might be brighter than the day shift. The whole concept of nighttime would become wonderfully complicated, with some evenings bright enough for outdoor sports and others so dim you'd want to light candles. Imagine finishing work at 5 in the evening and stepping outside to find both moons rising full in the eastern sky. The world would be washed in silver light bright enough to cast sharp shadows. Parks would be full of people having picnics, children playing games that we usually save for daylight, couples taking romantic walks on paths that glow like they're lit by gentle street lamps. The sounds of these bright nights would be different too. Instead of the quiet hush we associate with evening, there would be the cheerful bustle of extended daytime activities. Cafes might stay open later, not because they have electric lights, but because they have something better. 2 moons providing natural illumination that's both practical and beautiful. Street vendors in this world would have learned to read the lunar calendar as carefully as they read weather forecasts. They'd know which nights would bring crowds to the outdoor markets and which ones would send everyone inside. Bright double moon nights would be festival nights, almost automatically, without anyone having to plan them. But then there would be the truly dark nights, when both moons are new or hidden behind clouds. These would feel mysterious and intimate in ways we've almost forgotten. Without the constant background glow of moonlight, stars would blaze across the sky with an intensity that takes your breath away. These would be the nights for storytelling, for quiet conversations, for the kinds of activities that thrive in gentle darkness. Night shift workers would have completely different experiences depending on the lunar schedule. Hospital staff working under bright double moons would find patients sleeping more peacefully, their bodies confused by the mixed signals of darkness and bright light. But on dark moon nights, the same workers might find the hospital filled with a calm, restful energy that makes healing feel more natural. Security guards would learn to patrol differently based on the moon's schedule. Bright nights would require more vigilance, because more people would be out and active. Dark nights would be quieter, but also more mysterious, with deeper shadows and different hiding places. The restaurant industry would be transformed. Instead of dinner always happening at the same time, meal schedules might shift with the moons. On bright nights, dinner might extend late into the evening, with outdoor dining that feels like sunset picnics, even at midnight. On dark nights, people might prefer earlier, cozier dinners by candlelight, followed by early bedtimes. Entertainment would follow completely different patterns. Theaters might schedule romantic plays for dim single-moon nights and comedies for bright double-moon evenings. Concerts could be planned around natural lighting, with intimate acoustic shows under crescents and big, energetic performances under full moons. Children's bedtimes would be wonderfully flexible. Instead of fighting with kids who don't want to go to bed while it's still light outside, parents would learn to read the sky. Bright nights might naturally lead to later bedtimes and later wake-ups. Dark nights would encourage earlier sleep and dreams that seem deeper and more vivid. The crime rate would probably fluctuate with the lunar cycles in much more dramatic ways than it does now. Bright nights might see more petty crimes simply because more people are out and active, but also better natural surveillance. Dark nights might be safer in some ways because everyone's inside, but more dangerous in others because the darkness would be truly dark. But there's something peaceful about imagining shift work that feels more connected to natural rhythms. Instead of fighting against your body's desire for daylight, some night shifts would actually be working under generous natural lighting. Night nurses could check on patients without needing harsh electric lights. Night gardeners could tend to plants under the gentle glow of moons that provide just enough light to see, but not enough to wake sleeping flowers. The very concept of a workday would be more fluid. Instead of everyone following the same 9-to-5 schedule, work hours might naturally stagger based on personal lunar preferences and the night's lighting. Some businesses might stay open later on bright nights and close earlier on dark ones. There's no need to figure out which schedule you'd prefer. Just let yourself imagine the relief of living in a world where working at night doesn't always mean working in darkness, where the night shift can sometimes be the beautiful shift. The shift where you get to work under the gentle light of two moons, painting everything silver and gold, turning even ordinary tasks into something that feels a little bit magical. Earth is already wobbling like a spinning top, but two moons would make it wobble like a top with hiccups. Right now, our planet tilts at about 23.5 degrees, which gives us our seasons. Summer comes when your part of Earth leans toward the sun. Winter when it leans away. It's a steady, predictable dance that life has learned to trust over millions of years. But add a second moon, and suddenly Earth has two gravitational partners pulling at it from different directions. The planet's tilt would become much less stable, swaying back and forth like a person trying to balance while carrying two heavy bags that keep shifting weight. Picture what this would feel like as someone living on this wobbly Earth. Let your mind drift to a world where seasons don't follow the neat, predictable pattern we're used to. Some years might have two springs, as Earth rocks back toward the sun sooner than expected. Other years might skip winter entirely, or have a winter so long that people start to forget what green grass looks like. The smell of these irregular seasons would be constantly surprising. Instead of the familiar progression from spring flowers to summer heat to autumn leaves, you might walk outside to find cherry blossoms blooming in October, or snow falling on what should be a warm July day. Gardens would have to be much more flexible, with plants that can handle unexpected cold snaps or sudden heat waves. Imagine farmers in this world never quite sure what weather the next season will bring. They'd have to become master observers of the sky, watching both moons to predict when Earth's wobble might bring early frost or unexpected warmth. Planting seasons would be more like educated guesses, and successful farms would be those that learn to grow a little bit of everything, all the time. The wobble would be slow, taking years or decades to complete each cycle, so you wouldn't feel dizzy or seasick. But you might notice that the North Star isn't quite where it was when you were a child. Navigation by the stars would be more complicated, requiring regular updates to star charts and a deeper understanding of how Earth's changing tilt affects what you see in the night sky. Weather patterns would be beautifully chaotic. The jet stream, which helps control global weather, would shift its path as Earth's tilt changes. This could bring tropical storms to places that usually stay cool and dry, or send Arctic air flowing into regions that rarely see snow. There's no need to worry about the meteorology. Just picture the surprise of experiencing weather that doesn't follow the rules you learned growing up. Some parts of the world might become temporarily more habitable as Earth's wobble brings them different amounts of sunlight. Greenland could have periods where it's actually green, with brief growing seasons that allow forests to flourish. Meanwhile, places that are usually warm might experience unexpected ice ages that last just a few decades. The ice caps would be constantly adjusting to these changing conditions. Instead of growing and shrinking with predictable seasonal rhythms, they'd be in a state of constant, slow-motion flux. This would create landscapes that are always changing, always revealing new valleys or covering familiar hills with ice and snow. Animal migration would become much more complex and interesting. Birds, whales, and other traveling creatures would have to develop more flexible instincts. Instead of following the same routes their ancestors used for thousands of years, they'd need to adapt to new seasonal patterns, finding food and breeding grounds in places that might be hospitable one decade and frozen the next. Human cultures would become incredibly adaptable. Instead of building civilizations around predictable seasonal patterns, societies would learn to be nomadic even while staying in the same place. Houses would be designed to handle both extreme cold and unexpected heat. Food storage would focus on long-term preservation rather than seasonal cycles. But there would be beautiful benefits to this unstable world. Art and music would reflect the constant change in seasons and weather. Instead of having traditional winter songs or spring festivals, every season would bring surprises worth celebrating. Poetry would be filled with the wonder of unexpected snow or surprise blossoms. The fashion industry would be wonderfully creative, designing clothes that can handle unpredictable weather changes. People would learn to dress in layers not just for one day's weather, but for seasons that might shift unexpectedly. There would be a practical beauty in clothing designed for a world where you never quite know what to expect. Sleep patterns might be more natural in some ways, as people learn to rest more when the weather turns harsh and be more active when conditions are favorable. Instead of fighting against seasonal depression or forcing productivity during uncomfortable weather, human rhythms would become more fluid and responsive to the planet's changing moods. There's something deeply calming about imagining a world where change is the only constant, where unpredictability becomes a kind of predictability, where humans learn to flow with the planet's gentle, cosmic dance rather than trying to control or predict it. A world where every season brings the possibility of surprise, and where that surprise becomes something to anticipate with wonder rather than worry. Just let that feeling settle with you. Living on a planet that's always gently rocking between different possibilities, different seasons, different ways of being, like being cradled in the arms of a universe that never stops moving, never stops changing, and never stops offering new kinds of beauty. Imagine asking for directions and being told to turn left at the big moon and right at the little moon. In our single moon world, sailors have used "follow the moon" as navigation advice for thousands of years. But two moons would turn every journey into a choice. Which moon do you trust? Picture yourself as an early explorer in this two-moon world, standing on the deck of a wooden ship with stars reflected in calm water all around you. Both moons hang in the sky like lanterns, but they're pointing in slightly different directions. The larger moon, steady and reliable, suggests one route home. The smaller moon, dancing ahead, seems to recommend another path entirely. Sailors would have learned to read both moons like a complex language. The slow moon might be trustworthy for long voyages, its predictable path making it perfect for navigation across weeks of open ocean. But the fast moon could be better for quick coastal trips, its rapid movement across the sky providing more frequent position updates for shorter journeys. There's something beautiful about imagining the development of dual moon navigation tools. Instead of simple compasses, ships might carry intricate instruments that track both moons' positions, calculating routes based on the combined information from two celestial guides. These wouldn't just be tools, they'd be works of art, with brass gears and silver dials that catch and reflect the light of the very moons they're designed to follow. Land-based navigation would be equally creative. Instead of the North Star being the single reference point, travelers would learn to triangulate their position using both moons and the fixed stars. Maps would be more complex but also more beautiful, showing not just geographical features, but the overlapping paths of two moons across different seasons. The very concept of being lost would be different. With two moons providing different types of guidance, you'd rarely be completely without celestial help. Even if clouds covered one moon, the other might still be visible. Even if you couldn't remember which moon to follow for your particular journey, you'd at least have two chances to spot a familiar landmark. Children would grow up learning to read the sky like a book, with two different stories running at the same time. They'd know instinctively which moon rises first in each season, which one sets last, and how to use the space between them to judge time and direction. This kind of sky reading would be as natural as learning to tell time on a clock. But navigation by two moons would also allow for more poetic directions. Instead of the rigid precision of head northeast for 3 miles, people might give directions like walk toward where the moons kiss the horizon, or follow the shadow line between the double lights. These instructions would change nightly, making every journey feel fresh and connected to the cosmic dance happening overhead. There's no need to memorize the complex orbital mechanics. Just let your mind wander with the image of ancient traders who planned their routes around the intricate calendar of two moons. They'd know that certain combinations of moon positions made for lucky travels, while others suggested it was better to stay home and wait for more favorable celestial weather. Desert navigation would become particularly beautiful in this world. Instead of following a single moon across endless sand dunes, travelers would learn to use the interplay between two moon shadows to maintain their direction. The shifting patterns of light and shadow would create a constantly changing but reliable map across the desert floor. Mountain climbing would take on almost mystical qualities. Climbers would time their ascents to reach peaks when both moons are full, providing maximum natural lighting for safe nighttime climbing. The view from the summit would be extraordinary. Two moons hanging at different heights, casting multiple shadows across valleys and ridges, creating a landscape that looks like it belongs in a fairy tale. Even urban navigation would be influenced by the double moons. City planners might align streets to take advantage of predictable moon shadow patterns. Night markets could be positioned to catch the best natural lighting from either moon. Parks could be designed with pathways that are beautifully illuminated during different lunar combinations. The emergency services would develop entirely new protocols. Search and rescue teams would plan their missions around lunar schedules, knowing that some nights provide excellent natural lighting while others require more equipment. Lost hikers would be taught to signal using both moons as reference points, creating more reliable ways to communicate their location. But perhaps most beautifully, people would never really feel alone under the night sky. Even when traveling through unfamiliar territory, there would always be two familiar friends overhead, two reliable companions who might disagree on the best route but would never abandon you to complete darkness. Navigation would become less about following strict rules and more about learning to listen to the gentle, complex conversation between Earth and its two patient guardians, always ready to guide you safely home. Every culture on Earth has moon stories, but imagine the tales we'd tell if the moon had a sibling they were always fighting with or dancing with. The night sky would become a stage for cosmic drama, with two characters instead of one, creating myths rich enough to fill libraries and warm enough to whisper at bedtime. Picture the creation stories that might emerge from this world. Instead of a single moon goddess watching over the Earth, there might be twin sisters, each with her own personality and powers. The larger moon could be the patient elder sister, steady and wise, who keeps track of the seasons and helps crops grow. The smaller moon might be the playful younger sister, quick and mischievous, who brings sudden storms and unexpected luck. Some nights, these sisters would appear to chase each other across the sky in an eternal game of tag. Other nights, they'd seem to whisper secrets to each other, hanging close together like friends sharing gossip. When they appeared on opposite sides of the sky, storytellers might say they were having an argument, and children would watch to see which sister would give in first and move toward the other. The love stories alone would be breathtaking. Imagine Romeo and Juliet, but instead of meeting under one balcony moon, they meet when the two moons align perfectly, creating a moment of such bright, romantic light that it only happens once a year. Their families might be followers of different moons, adding celestial conflict to earthly drama. Different cultures would probably claim different moons as their patron. Island nations might follow the quick moon, seeing its rapid journey across the sky as a symbol of their seafaring nature. Mountain peoples could prefer the slow moon, appreciating its steady presence and reliable timing. This would create a natural diversity of festivals and traditions, with some celebrations happening on the fast moon's schedule and others following the stately rhythm of the larger companion. There's something wonderfully cozy about imagining bedtime stories in this world. Parents wouldn't just say, "Good night, moon." They'd have to choose which moon to address, or perhaps say goodnight to both. Children's lullabies would be more complex, with verses for each moon and special songs for nights when both are visible. The mythology around eclipses would be incredibly rich. Instead of just solar eclipses, there would be double moon eclipses, nights when both moons seem to disappear, leaving the world in unusual darkness. Ancient peoples might have seen this as a sign that the moon sisters were hiding from some cosmic danger, or perhaps joining forces to battle a sky demon that only they could see. Festivals would be timed around the rare moments when both moons are full at the same time. These super bright nights would be cause for the biggest celebrations, times when entire communities would stay awake all night, telling stories, sharing food, and dancing under light bright enough to make midnight feel like dawn. The calendar systems would be beautifully complicated. Instead of just tracking one lunar cycle, cultures would develop intricate systems that follow both moons, creating patterns that repeat every few years when the cycles align. These master calendars would predict not just when to plant crops or hold festivals, but when to expect the most beautiful nights, the most dramatic tides, and the most favorable conditions for everything from fishing to falling in love. Artists would have twice as much inspiration. Paintings of night scenes could show the interplay between different qualities of moonlight. Sculptures might be designed to cast different shadows depending on which moon is shining. Poetry would be filled with metaphors about the relationship between the sister moons, comparing them to lovers, rivals, dancers, or guides. Religious ceremonies would develop around the different personalities of each moon. Quiet, contemplative rituals might be timed for the gentle light of the larger moon, while energetic celebrations could be planned for the bright, quick energy of the smaller one. Some ceremonies might specifically require both moons to be present, creating sacred moments that can only happen when the celestial timing is perfect. The very language we use to describe emotions might be different. Instead of just feeling moody, people might distinguish between being big moon melancholy or little moon restless. The subtle differences in the quality of light from each moon would create subtle differences in the emotions we associate with nighttime. Marriage customs would incorporate both moons in beautiful ways. Couples might be married under the light of both moons for balance, or choose to wed under their favorite moon for good luck. Anniversary celebrations could be timed around the return of the same moon configuration that blessed the original wedding. But perhaps, most beautifully, no one would ever have to feel lonely under the night sky. There would always be evidence of companionship overhead, two friends who've learned to share the same space, sometimes agreeing, sometimes disagreeing, but always together. The night sky would be a constant reminder that even in the vastness of space, relationship is possible, harmony can be achieved, and beauty is always better when it's shared. There's no need to choose which myths you'd prefer. Just let your mind rest with the image of a world where every clear night offers a story, every month brings new chapters in the cosmic drama, and every bedtime provides an opportunity to wish upon not one star, but two patient moons who've been listening to human dreams and hopes for as long as anyone can remember. Launching a rocket is already like trying to thread a needle while riding a roller coaster. But two moons would turn space travel into a three-dimensional chess game played with rocket fuel. Right now, getting to our single moon requires careful calculations of speed, timing, and trajectory. Add a second moon, and suddenly every launch becomes a navigation puzzle that would challenge the smartest computers. Picture mission control in this two-moon world, with walls covered in charts showing not just one lunar orbit, but two constantly changing paths that weave around each other like a cosmic braided rope. Engineers would need to calculate launch windows that account for both moons' gravitational pulls, finding the perfect moment when the forces either help or at least don't interfere with each other. But there's something exciting about the possibilities this complexity would create. Instead of just one destination in the sky, astronauts would have two worlds to explore. The larger moon might be the practical choice for a permanent base, stable and predictable. The smaller moon could be the adventure destination, perfect for quick research trips or as a stepping stone to deeper space. Imagine the view from a spaceship traveling between Earth and the moons. Instead of looking back at a planet with one companion, you'd see a beautiful celestial family. Earth in the center with two moons orbiting at different speeds and distances, creating an ever-changing arrangement that would make every space journey feel like a front-row seat to a cosmic ballet. The fuel requirements would be much more complex, but also potentially more efficient in some ways. Space missions could use something called gravitational assists, where they borrow energy from one moon to help reach the other. A spacecraft might swing around the larger moon to pick up speed for a trip to the smaller one, or use the smaller moon's rapid orbit as a slingshot toward distant planets. There's no need to understand all the orbital mechanics, just picture the beauty of flight paths that curve and loop between multiple destinations. Instead of the relatively straight line from Earth to our current moon, spacecraft would follow graceful arcs that take advantage of both moons' gravity, creating journeys that are longer but more energy efficient, like taking the scenic route through space. Moon bases would probably develop very different personalities. The The larger moon base might focus on serious scientific research, using its stable environment for long-term experiments and permanent settlements. The smaller moon base could be more like a cosmic rest stop, a place for short visits and specialized missions that take advantage of its unique orbital characteristics. Communication between Earth and the moons would create interesting challenges. Sometimes both moons would be on the same side of Earth, making radio contact easy. Other times they'd be on opposite sides, requiring relay satellites or forcing mission controllers to choose which moon gets priority for direct communication. The tourism industry would be extraordinary once space travel becomes more accessible. Instead of just offering trips to the moon, travel companies could market visits to the adventure moon or the scenic moon. Some tourists might prefer the dramatic views from the fast-moving smaller moon, while others would choose the peaceful, contemplative experience of the larger, more stable lunar surface. Spacesuits and equipment would need to be designed for more varied conditions. The smaller moon might have different lighting conditions, different gravitational effects, and different challenges for astronauts. Equipment that works perfectly on one moon might need modifications for the other. But perhaps most beautifully, having two moons would provide natural redundancy for human space exploration. If something went wrong on one moon base, the other could serve as backup or rescue station. If a mission to one moon had to be cancelled due to technical problems, the other moon might be reachable with the same launch window. The psychological effects on astronauts would be fascinating. Instead of the isolation of being on a single moon with Earth as a distant blue dot, lunar colonists would always have visible proof that they're not alone. They could see their colleagues on the other moon as a bright point of light in their sky, creating a sense of community across the vacuum of space. Children growing up on moon bases would have the ultimate playground. They might visit both moons during their childhood, experiencing different kinds of low gravity, different views of Earth and space, different research environments. Some kids might prefer the excitement of the fast moon, while others feel more at home on the steady, reliable larger moon. The scientific research possibilities would be incredible. Comparative studies between the two moons would help us understand planetary formation, asteroid capture, and orbital mechanics in ways that are impossible with just one lunar laboratory. Each moon might preserve different parts of the solar system's early history, like having two different books about the same cosmic story. And there would always be backup plans. If Earth faced a catastrophic event, humans would have not one but two nearby worlds to serve as temporary refuges. The space program wouldn't be putting all its eggs in one lunar basket. It would be creating a true space-based civilization with multiple homes among the stars. There's something deeply comforting about imagining humanity as a species that doesn't just live on one world, but moves freely between three: Earth, our home, and two lunar companions that offer different kinds of adventure, different kinds of science, and different kinds of hope for the future. A space program where getting lost might just mean discovering something wonderful, and where every mission offers multiple chances for success among the gentle lights of our cosmic neighborhood. Solar eclipses happen when the moon gets between us and the sun, but two moons would turn the sky into a cosmic shadow puppet show that would make our current eclipses look like a rehearsal. Right now, a total solar eclipse is one of the rarest and most beautiful events you can witness. But in a two-moon world, the sky would offer an incredible variety of light shows, each one different, each one worth planning your day around. Picture waking up on a morning when astronomers have predicted a double eclipse. Both moons will pass in front of the sun, one after the other, creating a sequence of shadows that dance across the Earth like nature's own theater performance. The excitement would build as the first moon takes its first gentle bite out of the sun's edge. As the larger moon slowly covers the sun, The world would begin to dim in that familiar, eerie way that makes birds stop singing and flowers start to close. But just as totality begins, just as the sun disappears behind the first moon and the sky turns to twilight, the second moon would start its own crossing, creating a double shadow that plunges the world into a darkness deeper than any single eclipse could provide. The temperature would drop noticeably during these double eclipses. Instead of the brief chill of a normal eclipse, the extended darkness might feel like winter arriving in the middle of summer. You'd want to bring a sweater to your eclipse watching party, not just sunglasses and special viewing filters. But not every eclipse would involve both moons. Sometimes, you might witness the strange beauty of partial eclipses happening simultaneously in different parts of the sky. Picture looking up to see the sun partially covered by one moon, while the other moon creates a separate shadow somewhere else in the sky, casting complex, overlapping shadows on the ground that shift and dance as both moons continue their orbital paths. The quality of light during these events would be unlike anything we can imagine. Instead of the pure silver twilight of a regular eclipse, you might experience golden shadows when one moon blocks part of the sun while the other reflects sunlight from a different angle. The world could be painted in combinations of shadow and reflected light that create entirely new kinds of illumination. There's something magical about imagining eclipse festivals in this world. Communities would gather not just for rare total eclipses, but for the many different types of partial, sequential, and overlapping eclipses that two moons would provide. Some eclipses might last much longer than our current ones, giving people time to really experience the change in light, temperature, and atmosphere. Children would grow up with a much richer understanding of how shadows work. Instead of learning about eclipses as rare, special events, they'd experience various types of solar shadows throughout their childhood. They'd learn to predict not just when an eclipse will happen, but what kind of light show it will create, how long it will last, and whether it's worth staying up late or getting up early to watch. The photography opportunities would be extraordinary. Instead of just capturing the classic image of a corona around a totally eclipsed sun, photographers could document the complex interplay of multiple shadows, the subtle variations in twilight colors, and the way familiar landscapes look under combinations of direct and reflected sunlight that occur nowhere else in the solar system. But eclipses wouldn't be the only unusual lighting events. There would also be opposition shadows, times when the sun is shining from one direction while both moons are reflecting light from another direction, creating landscapes that are lit from multiple angles simultaneously. These wouldn't be as dramatic as eclipses, but they'd be much more common, happening several times a year instead of once in a lifetime. Animals would develop much more sophisticated responses to changing light conditions. Instead of just the simple eclipse behavior that animals show during our current solar eclipses, creatures would learn to distinguish between different types of unusual lighting. Some might take cover during double eclipses, but continue normal activities during single eclipses or opposition lighting events. The spiritual and emotional impact of these events would be profound. Instead of solar eclipses being once-in-a-lifetime experiences that people travel across continents to witness, they'd be regular reminders of our place in a larger cosmic dance. The sense of wonder wouldn't be diminished by familiarity. It would be enriched by the variety and complexity of the light shows that nature provides. Weather forecasting would include eclipse predictions as a regular feature. Instead of just checking for rain or sunshine, you might check to see what kind of natural lighting to expect. This could influence everything from when farmers choose to work in their fields to when photographers plan outdoor photo shoots. There's no need to worry about the complex orbital calculations. Just let your mind rest with the image of a world where the sky regularly puts on shows that remind everyone to look up, to pause in their daily activities, and to remember that we live on a planet that dances with not one but two cosmic partners, creating beauty that's always changing, always surprising, and always worth stopping everything to watch. The simple act of walking outside would carry the possibility of witnessing something extraordinary. Not just on special, predicted days, but on ordinary afternoons when the light suddenly shifts, the shadows start behaving strangely, and you realize that the sky is putting on another one of its gentle, magnificent performances just for anyone who happens to be paying attention. Earth's crust is already cracking and shifting, but two moons would turn our planet into a stress ball being squeezed by invisible hands. Right now, our single moon causes tiny flexes in the solid Earth, barely noticeable changes that happen twice a day along with the ocean tides. But two moons pulling from different directions would create a much more active, much more interesting geological world. Picture the ground beneath your feet as something more alive, more responsive to the cosmic dance happening overhead. Instead of thinking of solid rock as truly solid, imagine it as something more like thick honey that bends and stretches in slow motion as gravitational forces tug at it from multiple directions. The most obvious change would be more earthquakes, but not necessarily more dangerous ones. Many of these extra earthquakes would be small, gentle tremors that happen so regularly people would learn to expect them. Instead of earthquakes being rare, terrifying events, they might become like thunderstorms, common enough that you learn to live with them, dramatic enough to still be interesting. There would probably be earthquake seasons, times of year when the two moons align in ways that create extra stress on the Earth's crust. People might plan their lives around these periods the way we currently plan around hurricane season or winter weather. Construction projects might be scheduled for the calmer geological periods when both moons are pulling in ways that stabilize rather than stress the ground. Volcanoes would be much more active and much more predictable. The regular squeezing and stretching of the Earth's crust would provide more pathways for magma to reach the surface, but it would also give scientists better tools for predicting eruptions. Volcanic activity might follow patterns related to the moon's positions, making it easier to know when to evacuate and when it's safe to return. But there's beauty in this geological restlessness. Hot springs would be more common and more reliable. The constant flexing of the crust would create more fractures for heated groundwater to reach the surface, creating natural spas in places where none exist today. Communities might develop around these geothermal features, using the Earth's own heat for everything from warming homes to cooking food. The landscape would be more dynamic and varied. Mountain ranges might grow faster as the increased tectonic activity pushes rock formations upward. But erosion would also be more active, as the frequent small earthquakes would constantly break rock into smaller pieces that rivers and weather could carry away more easily. Caves would be spectacular. The regular stress and release cycles would create more fractures in limestone and other rock formations, leading to vast underground systems that would be both more extensive and more stable than the caves we know today. These wouldn't just be tourist attractions, they'd be natural air conditioning systems and emergency shelters during extreme weather. There's something soothing about imagining how human architecture would adapt to this more active geology. Buildings would be designed with much more flexibility, able to sway and bend without breaking. This would actually make cities more beautiful, with structures that move gently in response to the Earth's breathing rather than fighting against it. The mineral resources would be incredible. All that extra geological activity would bring rare metals and gemstones closer to the surface, making mining easier and more productive. But it would also create new types of formations that don't exist in our current world. Minerals that form only under the specific conditions created by dual gravitational stress. Ocean floors would be much more active, with underwater volcanoes and earthquakes creating new islands and changing coastlines on a regular basis. This might sound dangerous, but it would also create incredibly rich marine ecosystems around these active zones where mineral-rich water supports more diverse and abundant sea life. People would develop a different relationship with the ground beneath their feet. Instead of expecting the earth to be solid and unchanging, they'd learn to feel and appreciate its subtle movements. Children might grow up being able to sense small earthquakes before animals do, developing an intuitive connection to their planet's moods and rhythms. The science of geology would be much more advanced because there would be so much more geological activity to study. Instead of having to wait millions of years to see how mountains form or continents drift, scientists could observe accelerated versions of these processes happening over decades or centuries. But perhaps most importantly, people would never forget that they live on a dynamic, living planet. The regular reminders of geological activity would keep humans connected to the larger cosmic forces that shape their world. Instead of feeling separate from nature, they'd feel like participants in an ongoing conversation between Earth and its two faithful moons. There's no need to worry about the engineering challenges. Just let your thoughts settle on the image of a world where the ground gently responds to the sky, where mountains grow like slow plants reaching toward the moons, where hot springs bubble up as gifts from the Earth's warm heart, and where the very stones beneath your feet remind you that you live on a planet that's alive, responsive, and intimately connected to the celestial dance happening far above your head. Even as you drift towards sleep, you might imagine feeling the tiniest tremor beneath you, not frightening but comforting, like the heartbeat of a planet that's never quite still, never quite asleep, always gently moving in rhythm with its two moonlit partners in the cosmic waltz that shapes worlds. Imagine planning a barbecue and having to check not just the weather, but which moons will be up and whether your yard will be bright enough to see the hamburgers. In our two-moon world, the simple activities that fill our daily lives would be gently transformed by the complex dance of light and shadow happening overhead every night. Your garden would become a much more interesting challenge and opportunity. Instead of planting by one lunar cycle, you'd learn to work with two different rhythms. Some vegetables might thrive when planted during the new phase of the fast moon, while others prefer the patient timing of the slow moon cycle. Your tomatoes might ripen better under the bright light of double full moons, while your lettuce stays crisp longer during the dimmer periods. Picture checking your weather app in the morning, but alongside the usual temperature and precipitation forecast, there's a lunar lighting report. Tonight, 73% illumination from combined moon sources, optimal for outdoor dining and children's activities. Garden watering recommended during the dark phase between moonrise periods. Backyard entertaining would flow with completely different rhythms. Dinner parties could naturally extend much later on bright double moon nights, with conversation flowing easily under natural lighting that makes everyone's face look gentle and relaxed. But on dark moon nights, you might plan more intimate gatherings, early dinners followed by cozy indoor activities or stargazing sessions where the Milky Way stretches across an unusually dark sky. Children's outdoor play would be revolutionized. Instead of being called inside when the sun sets, kids could continue their games under the generous lighting of twin moons. Hide and seek would become more complex and exciting with multiple light sources, creating multiple hiding spots. Evening sports leagues could be planned around the lunar calendar, scheduling games for naturally bright nights. Your sleep schedule would become more flexible and probably more natural. Instead of fighting against artificial lighting or forcing yourself to sleep when your body wants to be active, you could learn to flow with your personal lunar preferences. Some people might discover they sleep better during the dark phases, while others feel more rested when bright moonlight streams through their bedroom windows. Lawn care would follow different patterns. Grass might grow differently under varying light conditions, creating natural stripes or patterns across your yard as different areas respond to different combinations of moonlight exposure. You might find yourself mowing more frequently during certain moon phases and barely at all during others. The sounds of your neighborhood would change with the lunar cycles. On bright nights, you'd hear more activity, people talking on their porches, children playing later, evening joggers taking advantage of natural lighting. On dark nights, the sounds would be quieter, more mysterious. Wind in the trees, night birds calling, the distant hum of air conditioners working harder when people stay indoors. Home security would adapt to the changing light conditions. Instead of relying entirely on artificial lighting, homeowners would learn to use moon shadows and natural bright periods as part of their security planning. Motion sensor lights would be calibrated differently for nights when natural lighting makes them unnecessary versus nights when every shadow could hide an intruder. Your relationship with your windows would change completely. Instead of just opening them for fresh air or closing them for privacy, you'd learn to position curtains and blinds to work with the changing patterns of moonlight. Some windows might be designed to catch and reflect light from one moon while blocking the other, creating interior lighting that shifts naturally throughout the month. Seasonal decorating would incorporate lunar cycles alongside traditional holidays. Outdoor lighting wouldn't just be for Christmas or summer parties, it would be a year-round consideration, based on which months bring the darkest nights and which ones are bright enough to make artificial lighting unnecessary. The simple pleasure of reading outside would be transformed. Some nights, you could comfortably read a book by moonlight without any artificial illumination. Other nights, you'd need a reading lamp even for large print books. This would make outdoor reading feel more connected to natural rhythms and more special when conditions are perfect. Your pets would develop more complex routines. Dogs might prefer walks during certain moon phases, while cats could become more or less active depending on the lighting conditions. Pet doors might need to be adjusted for the reality that nighttime doesn't always mean dark time in a world with variable natural lighting. But perhaps most beautifully, your backyard would become a place where you feel more connected to the larger cosmic story happening around your planet. Instead of your outdoor space feeling separate from the universe, it would be clearly, visibly part of a larger dance involving Earth and its two faithful companions. There's no need to change anything about your actual backyard. Just let your mind rest with the image of outdoor spaces that breathe with the rhythm of the sky, where planning a simple evening meal becomes a gentle exercise in astronomy, and where the ordinary magic of your own yard is illuminated not just by electric lights, but by the ancient, reliable glow of two moons who've been lighting backyards and evening conversations since the very first humans looked up at the night sky and decided to stay outside just a little bit longer. Nothing lasts forever, not even the most beautiful dance, and eventually our two moons would have to say goodbye. The same gravitational forces that keep them dancing together would also, slowly and inevitably, change their relationship. But this ending would happen over such vast stretches of time that thousands of human generations would watch and appreciate the gradual changes, making it less like a sudden loss and more like a very long, very gentle farewell. Picture astronomers millions of years in the future, tracking tiny changes in the moon's orbits with instruments more precise than anything we can imagine today. They'd measure how the smaller moon is gradually spiraling outward, pulled away by the sun's gravity and the complex gravitational interactions within the Earth-Moon system. Or perhaps they'd notice the larger moon slowly moving inward, its orbit decaying as it trades energy with its smaller companion. There's something peaceful about imagining these far future scientists documenting changes that happen so slowly they're invisible to individual human lifetimes. The moon's dance would continue to be beautiful for countless generations, but it would also be slowly, quietly changing, like a song that gradually shifts from one key to another so smoothly you don't notice until you compare the beginning to the end. The most likely ending would be a gentle separation rather than a dramatic collision. Gravitational forces tend to push smaller objects away from larger ones over very long periods of time. Our smaller moon would probably drift farther and farther from Earth, its orbit growing wider and wider until it's no longer strongly bound to our planet. Eventually, it might escape entirely, becoming a small asteroid that wanders off to find a new home somewhere else in the solar system. But before that final goodbye, there would be a long period of gradual change that would be visible and meaningful to the humans experiencing it. The smaller moon's orbit would become more elliptical, bringing it very close to Earth during part of its orbit and very far away during other parts. This would create extreme variations in tidal effects and lighting conditions, making the lunar cycles more dramatic rather than less noticeable. Children growing up during these transitional periods would experience something no generation before them had seen, a night sky that's obviously changing within human lifetimes. They might see the smaller moon appear larger and smaller in regular cycles as its elliptical orbit brings it closer and takes it farther away. Astronomers would be able to predict exactly when the moon would appear largest and smallest, creating new types of festivals and celebrations. The tidal effects during this transitional period could be spectacular. When the smaller moon reaches the closest point in its increasingly elliptical orbit, the combined tidal forces might create supertides that dwarf anything seen during the stable period. Coastal communities would adapt by building floating cities or developing technology to handle extreme water level changes, turning the challenges into opportunities for innovation. There's something beautiful about imagining how human culture would adapt to living with a gradually changing sky. Instead of thinking of the night sky as eternal and unchanging, people would grow up with an intuitive understanding of cosmic time, of the way even the most stable-seeming things are actually in constant, slow motion. This could make people more adaptable, more appreciative of temporary beauty, more aware of their place in the long story of the universe. Art and poetry during this transitional period would capture the bittersweet beauty of celestial change. Instead of taking the double moons for granted, people would appreciate them more knowing that the relationship is slowly evolving. Songs would be written about the approaching farewell. Stories would celebrate the long partnership between Earth and its two companions. The scientific opportunities during the separation period would be incredible. Astronomers would have front-row seats to observe gravitational dynamics that usually take place over timescales too long for human observation. The gradual changes would provide natural experiments in orbital mechanics, helping scientists understand how planetary systems form and evolve. But the most likely scenario is that the separation would happen so slowly that it feels natural rather than tragic. Each generation would see a slightly different sky than their parents did, but the changes would be small enough that they feel like part of the normal progression of life rather than a loss to mourn. Eventually, Earth would return to being a single moon planet, but it would be a different Earth than the one that originally formed with one companion. The geological activity, the evolved life forms, the human cultures, and even the planet's rotation and tilt would all bear the marks of the long period of dual moon influence. There's no need to feel sad about this far future goodbye. Just let your mind rest with the image of a cosmic dance that lasts for millions of generations, providing beauty and wonder and gentle influence for countless lifetimes before gracefully coming to its natural conclusion. A reminder that even temporary arrangements can be eternal on human timescales, and that knowing something won't last forever doesn't make it less precious. It makes it more worth appreciating while it's here. Like falling asleep under the light of two patient moons, knowing that their dance will continue long after your own dreams have faded into peaceful rest, and that tomorrow night they'll still be there, still beautiful, still faithfully lighting the darkness for anyone who takes a moment to look up and remember that we live in a universe where such gentle wonders are possible. Weather already has a mind of its own, but two moons would give it some very interesting new ideas. Right now, our atmosphere dances to a fairly predictable rhythm. High pressure, low pressure, warm fronts, cold fronts. The jet stream flows in patterns that meteorologists can track and forecast. But add a second moon pulling at our atmosphere from different angles, and suddenly weather becomes much more creative, much more surprising. Picture waking up to check the weather forecast, but instead of the familiar sunny with a chance of rain, you might see something like morning thunderstorms during the fast moon's peak, clearing as the slow moon rises, with possible surprise gusts when both moons align at sunset. Weather wouldn't just follow the sun and the seasons anymore. It would dance to the complex rhythm of two gravitational partners. The wind patterns would be constantly shifting in subtle but beautiful ways. Our atmosphere is like a thick, invisible ocean surrounding the planet, and just like the liquid oceans, it would respond to the pull of both moons. Sometimes the two gravitational forces would work together, creating stronger high and low pressure systems. Other times they'd pull in opposite directions, creating calmer, more stable weather that feels peaceful and still. There's something lovely about imagining how different types of storms would follow different lunar schedules. Thunderstorms might prefer the dramatic energy of the fast moon, building up quickly and moving across the landscape in rapid bursts of lightning and rain. But gentle, steady rains could follow the patient rhythm of the slow moon, settling in for long, nourishing soaks that make everything green and fresh. Let your mind drift with the image of clouds that form in patterns we've never seen. Instead of the familiar shapes driven by single pressure systems, cloud formations might spiral and swirl in response to dual gravitational influences. Some days, you might look up to see clouds arranged in gentle double helixes or twin spirals that mirror the dance of the moons themselves. The jet stream, that high-altitude river of air that carries weather systems around the planet, would follow a much more complex path. Instead of flowing in relatively simple waves around the Earth, it might weave and loop in intricate patterns that change with the positions of both moons. This could bring unexpected weather to different regions, snow in places that rarely see it, or tropical warmth to areas that usually stay cool. But there's no need to worry about the meteorological details, just picture how this would feel on your skin. Some days, the air might have a different quality, a subtle electric feeling when both moons are pulling at the atmosphere in just the right way. Other days might feel extraordinarily calm and still, when the dual forces balance each other out and the air barely moves at all. Seasonal weather patterns would become beautifully unpredictable. Instead of winter always bringing the same type of cold weather, some winters might be dominated by fast moon storm systems that bring brief, intense snowstorms followed by clear, bright days. Other winters could follow the slow moon's rhythm, bringing steady, gentle snowfall that builds up gradually over weeks. The very smell of the air would change with these new weather patterns. Rain that falls during different lunar combinations might carry different minerals from higher or lower in the atmosphere. The air after a fast moon thunderstorm could smell sharp and electric, while the atmosphere following a slow moon rain might feel soft and earthy, full of the gentle sense of growing things. Children would grow up learning to read the sky in much more complex ways. Instead of just watching for storm clouds, they'd learn to feel the subtle changes in air pressure that come with different moon positions. They might develop an intuitive sense for when the weather is about to do something interesting, becoming natural meteorologists who can sense atmospheric changes the way sailors learn to read wind and waves. But perhaps most beautifully, weather would become more clearly connected to the cosmic dance happening above our heads. Instead of feeling like random events that happen to us, storms and clear skies would feel like part of a larger choreography involving Earth, its atmosphere, and its two faithful moon companions. There's something deeply peaceful about imagining weather that feels more alive, more connected to the movements of the universe. Rain that falls not just because of temperature and humidity, but because of the gentle gravitational conversation between Earth and its two moons. Wind that blows not just because of pressure differences, but because the whole atmosphere is participating in a cosmic waltz that's been going on for millions of years. Even as you settle into sleep, you might imagine the air around you breathing gently with the rhythm of this celestial dance, carrying the subtle influences of two moons that are quietly shaping not just the tides and the light, but the very air you breathe, making each breath a small participation in the endless, beautiful conversation between earth and sky. Evolution is remarkably creative, but two moons would have given it some extra inspiration. Life on Earth has always been shaped by the rhythm of our single moon, but imagine the incredible variety of creatures that might have developed if evolution had two different lunar cycles to work with. There's no need to understand all the biological details. Just let your mind wander through a world where life learned to dance to multiple cosmic rhythms. Picture tide pools where different animals follow completely different schedules. Some crabs might scuttle out to feed during the bright phases of the fast moon, their shells perhaps reflecting that moon's golden light. Other crabs could be slow moon creatures, patient and methodical, emerging only during the longer, steadier cycles of the larger moon. The same rocky shoreline could host two completely different communities of life, active at different times, following different rhythms. In the deep forests, imagine flowers that have learned to bloom by moonlight, not just opening their petals during the day, but actually photosynthesizing using the bright light of full moons. On nights when both moons are full, these lunar flowers might glow with a soft, bioluminescent light, creating forests that sparkle like fairy tale woodlands. The sweet fragrance of night-blooming flowers would be strongest during double moon nights, making evening walks through these forests feel like moving through a living dream. Birds might have evolved into fast moon and slow moon species, each with their own migration patterns and nesting cycles. Fast moon birds could be small and energetic, following the rapid cycles of the smaller moon, their songs quick and bright, like musical chatter. Slow moon birds might be larger and more stately, their calls deep and resonant, their migrations following the patient 28-day rhythm that feels more familiar to us. There's something magical about imagining sea creatures that have learned to use both moons for navigation. Whales might follow different routes depending on which moon is brightest, some pods following the fast moon's path across the sky, while others trust the steady guidance of the slow moon. Their songs could change with the lunar cycles, creating different melodies for different types of journeys across the vast oceans. Fish that spawn during specific lunar phases might have split into multiple subspecies, each time to different combinations of moon cycles. Some might spawn only when both moons are full, creating spectacular underwater displays that happen just a few times each year. Others could spawn during the dark moon phases, when the extra darkness provides protection for their vulnerable young. The night-hunting animals would be extraordinary. Owls might have evolved different eye structures depending on which moon they prefer to hunt by. Fast moon owls could have eyes adapted for the brighter, more variable lighting conditions, while slow moon owls might have enhanced night vision for hunting during the dimmer periods. Their hoots would create complex duets across the nighttime forest, some calling during bright phases, others during dark ones. But it's the smaller creatures that would be most surprising. Imagine fireflies that flash in patterns synchronized with different moons, creating displays where some insects blink rapidly during fast moon nights, while others pulse slowly during slow moon evenings. The same meadow could host light shows that are sometimes quick and energetic, sometimes slow and hypnotic, depending on which lunar community is most active. Sea turtles might have evolved into multiple species with completely different reproductive strategies. Some could lay their eggs during the extreme high tides of double moon nights, burying them deep in sand that only gets reached during these special conditions. Others might prefer the gentle, predictable tides of single moon periods, choosing safety over the dramatic timing of dual lunar events. The deep-sea creatures would be most creative of all. In the dark depths where no sunlight reaches, life would organize entirely around the subtle gravitational rhythms of two moons. Deep-sea fish might migrate vertically in the water column, following complex patterns that match the orbital dance above. Some creatures could be active only during specific moon combinations, making them incredibly rare and mysterious. There's no need to memorize all these imaginary species, just let the feeling settle in your mind. A world where life is even more diverse, more creative, more beautifully adapted to cosmic rhythms than anything we see today. Every ecosystem would have multiple layers of activity, multiple schedules of life, creating a planet that never sleeps but also never lacks for quiet moments. Pollinating insects might follow different flowers that bloom according to different moons, creating separate but overlapping networks of plant and animal relationships. Gardens would be active at all hours, with some flowers opening for fast moon butterflies while others wait for slow moon moths, creating continuous cycles of pollination and growth. Even the relationship between predators and prey would be more complex and interesting. Some animals might hide during their non-preferred moon phases and become active when their preferred moon is bright, creating natural rhythm to hunting and safety that gives everyone a chance to thrive. Picture falling asleep in this world, knowing that outside your window, different communities of creatures are becoming active as others settle into rest, and that this gentle changing of the guard happens not just with day and night, but with the complex, beautiful rhythms of two moons that have been teaching life new ways to dance for millions of years. A world where evolution's creativity was doubled, where life learned to sing in harmony with not one but two celestial conductors, creating a symphony of existence that's even richer, even more wonderful than the amazing diversity we already have around us. Keeping track of time is hard enough with one moon, but two moons would turn calendar making into an art form. Right now, our calendar tries to balance the sun's yearly cycle with the moon's monthly rhythm, and it's already complicated enough that we need leap years and special rules to make everything work. But imagine trying to create a calendar that accounts for two different moons, each with their own cycle, creating patterns that repeat in wonderful but complex ways. Picture ancient astronomers in this world, sitting on hilltops night after night, carefully tracking the movements of both moons across the sky. They'd need to figure out not just when each moon completes its orbit, but when the two cycles line up, when they oppose each other, and when they create special combinations that happen only rarely. The basic building blocks of time would be completely different. Instead of weeks based on quarters of a single lunar cycle, people might develop double weeks or triple weeks based on the interactions between both moons. Some cultures might count 7 days for the fast moon's quarter cycle and 14 days for the slow moon's half cycle, creating overlapping rhythms that give each day a unique character. There's something beautiful about imagining the mathematics that would emerge from this challenge. The cycles would create patterns that repeat every few years when both moons return to exactly the same positions relative to each other and the Earth. These master cycles could become the basis for longer calendar periods, creating systems where certain celebrations happen only once every few years when the cosmic timing is perfect. Let your mind drift with the idea of months that have different personalities depending on which moon is dominant. Fast moon months might be shorter but more energetic, packed with activity and quick changes. Slow moon months could be longer and more contemplative, better for planning, reflection, and steady work. Some months might be balanced between both moons, creating periods that feel harmonious and stable. Different cultures would probably develop completely different solutions to the calendar puzzle. Island societies might follow the fast moon because its rapid changes match the quick shifts in ocean conditions. Mountain peoples could prefer the slow moon's steady rhythm for planning agricultural seasons that depend on gradual temperature changes. Desert nomads might use both moons for navigation, creating calendars that track not just time, but also the best routes for seasonal travels. The concept of holidays would be wonderfully complex. Instead of annual celebrations, there could be rare festivals that happen only when both moons are full at the same time. These double moon celebrations would be planned years in advance, with whole communities preparing for events that are both predictable and special because they don't happen often. But there would also be more frequent celebrations based on the regular interactions between the moons. Perhaps every time the fast moon laps the slow moon, completing extra orbits, there could be passing festivals that celebrate the moment when the smaller moon catches up to its larger sibling in the sky. Birthdays would become more interesting too. Instead of just celebrating the anniversary of the day you were born, people might also celebrate their moon birthday, the anniversary of the specific combination of moon phases that was happening when they entered the world. Some people might have birthdays that are common, happening several times each year, while others might have rare moon birthdays that occur only once every few years. There's no need to work out all the mathematical details, just picture how this would feel in daily life. Instead of everyone following exactly the same weekly schedule, different communities might have naturally different rhythms based on which lunar calendar they follow. Some towns might be busy and active, while others are quiet and restful, creating a natural diversity of energy across the landscape. School schedules could be based on lunar quarters, with intensive study periods during certain moon phases and breaks during others. Work weeks might vary with the seasons and the moon cycles, creating more natural rhythms that flow with cosmic timing rather than fighting against it. The business world would adapt by learning to plan projects around the predictable variations in productivity and energy that come with different lunar phases. Some types of work might be scheduled for fast moon periods when people are energetic and quick thinking, while other projects could be planned for slow moon times when patience and careful attention to detail are easier to maintain. But perhaps most beautifully, people would grow up with an intuitive understanding of complex rhythms and cycles. Instead of thinking of time as a straight line with regular tick marks, children would learn to see time as a spiral, a dance, a weaving together of multiple patterns that create an incredibly rich tapestry of experience. Personal scheduling would become more like music composition, with people learning to arrange their activities to harmonize with the natural rhythms of energy and rest that come with dual lunar cycles. Instead of forcing productivity during times when the cosmic timing suggests rest, humans would learn to work with the larger patterns, making life feel more natural and less stressful. There's something deeply comforting about imagining a world where keeping track of time connects you more closely to the cosmic dance happening overhead, where every date on the calendar tells you not just when something will happen, but what kind of energy and possibilities that particular combination of cosmic timing will bring. A world where time itself feels more alive, more connected to the beautiful complexity of living on a planet that dances through space with not one but two faithful partners, each contributing their own rhythm to the endless, ever-changing song of days and nights and seasons. If you think the ocean is mysterious now, imagine what secrets it would hold with two moons stirring its depths. The ocean already feels like an alien world filled with creatures and landscapes that seem borrowed from dreams, but dual lunar forces would create underwater realms that are even more magical, even more alive with possibilities we can barely imagine. Picture diving beneath the surface during one of those extreme low tides when both moons pull the water away from the shore. You'd swim through underwater canyons that are usually hidden beneath hundreds of feet of water, exploring caves and valleys that most generations never see. The water would be crystal clear during these extreme low periods, filtered by the unusual currents and revealing underwater landscapes with a clarity that makes everything look like it's lit from within. But there's no need to worry about the diving equipment. Just let your mind drift down into these hidden depths. Coral reefs would be the most spectacular feature of this underwater world. Instead of growing in the relatively predictable conditions we know today, corals would have learned to thrive in the constantly changing environment created by dual tides. Some coral species might spawn only during the super high tides when both moons pull together, releasing their eggs and sperm into water that's moving faster and farther than usual. These would be brief, spectacular events when the entire reef erupts in clouds of colorful reproduction, creating underwater snowstorms of life that happen just a few times each year. Other corals could follow the rhythm of the fast moon, spawning in quick cycles that create smaller but more frequent displays of underwater fireworks. The reef would never be completely quiet, always hosting some type of reproductive celebration, some species releasing the next generation while others rest and grow. The fish communities would be incredibly complex and beautiful. Schools of fish might split their behavior between two lunar schedules, with some individuals following the fast moon's rhythm for feeding and others synchronizing with the slow moon's cycle. This could create underwater dances where parts of the same school swim in different patterns, creating spiral formations and flowing shapes that change as different fish respond to different cosmic conductors. Deep ocean creatures would develop the most extraordinary adaptations. In the abyssal depths where no sunlight reaches, life would organize entirely around the subtle gravitational rhythms transmitted through the water from the moons far above. Deep-sea fish might migrate up and down through the water column in patterns that match the orbital dance of both moons, creating vertical communities that rise and fall like slow elevators through the ocean's layers. The whales would become master navigators of this complex system. Different pods might follow different lunar rhythms for their migrations, some racing around the oceans in sync with the fast moon, while others follow the patient, long-distance timing of the slow moon. Their songs would carry information about both lunar cycles, creating underwater communication networks that span entire ocean basins. There's something beautiful about imagining whale songs that change with the moon phases, different melodies for different types of lunar timing. Fast moon songs might be quick and bright, sharing information about rapidly changing conditions. Slow moon songs could be deep and resonant, carrying news about long-term changes in ocean currents and food availability. The underwater currents themselves would be like rivers within the sea, flowing in patterns too complex for any human to fully understand, but perfectly natural to the creatures that have learned to ride them. Some currents might strengthen during certain moon combinations, carrying nutrients and plankton in temporary rivers that last only a few days. Fish would time their spawning to release their young into these nutrient-rich highways that appear and disappear with cosmic timing. kelp forests would sway to the rhythm of dual tidal forces, creating underwater dances that are sometimes gentle and hypnotic, sometimes energetic and wild. The sound of these forests would change with the tides. During extreme low tides, you might hear the kelp rustling as it moves in the shallow water, creating whispered conversations between thousands of plants all swaying to the same cosmic rhythm. The deepest ocean trenches would become even more mysterious and active. The extreme gravitational forces during certain moon alignments might stir up sediments and nutrients from the ocean floor, creating temporary blooms of deep-sea life that normally stays hidden in the darkness. These would be like underwater auroras, brief displays of bioluminescent beauty that happen only when the cosmic timing is perfect. Even the chemistry of the ocean would shift with the dual lunar cycles. Different moon combinations might bring different minerals to the surface, creating temporary changes in water temperature, salinity, and nutrient content that support different types of marine life. The ocean would literally taste different during different lunar phases, with subtle changes that marine animals use as signals for feeding, mating, and migration. There's no need to understand all the complex oceanography, just picture the feeling of floating in water that's more alive, more responsive to the cosmic dance happening far above the surface. Every drop of seawater would be participating in gravitational conversations between Earth and its two moons, making the ocean feel like a living entity that breathes with the rhythm of the universe. Picture falling asleep to the sound of waves that are shaped not just by wind and weather, but by the gentle pull of two moons working together to create tides that are sometimes dramatic, sometimes peaceful, but always connected to the larger story of cosmic forces that make our planet a place where oceans can exist at all. Even the rhythm of waves lapping against the shore would tell the story of dual lunar influence, each wave carrying the combined message of two gravitational voices that have been shaping the seas, stirring the depths, and creating underwater worlds of wonder for as long as oceans have existed on our beautiful, moon-swept planet. And so, we arrive at the end of our gentle journey through a world that never was, but might have been. We've wandered together through the story of two moons, from their birth in cosmic fire to their quiet dance across alien skies. We've felt the pull of double tides, seen shadows split and merge under twin lights, and imagined seasons that wobble and sway with Earth's gentle rocking between two gravitational partners. It's been a world of constant surprise and change, nights that glow like silver snow and nights so dark the stars seem close enough to touch. Flowers that bloom to different rhythms, creating gardens that smell like poetry written in multiple languages. Children growing up with flexible bedtimes and workers whose night shifts sometimes shine brighter than day. Perhaps what's most beautiful about this imagined world is how it reminds us that even our real Earth, with its single faithful moon, is extraordinary. Tonight, when you see that familiar silver disk hanging in the sky, you might feel a small gratitude for its steady presence, its predictable rhythm, the way it's been quietly organizing the tides and lighting the darkness for billions of years. And if you found any peace in these wandering thoughts, if the gentle science helped your mind settle into rest, feel free to follow us for more quiet journeys through the wonders of the universe. Sleep well under whatever moons may watch over your dreams. Thanks for joining us here at Sleep Science. Sleep well. And so, we arrive at the end of our gentle journey through a world that never was, but might have been. We've wandered together through the story of two moons, from their birth in cosmic fire to their quiet dance across alien skies. We've felt the pull of double tides, seen shadows split and merge under twin lights, and imagined seasons that wobble and sway with Earth's gentle rocking between two gravitational partners. It's been a world of constant surprise and change, nights that glow like silver snow and nights so dark the stars seem close enough to touch. flowers that bloom to different rhythms, creating gardens that smell like poetry written in multiple languages. Children growing up with flexible bedtimes and workers whose night shifts sometimes shine brighter than day. Perhaps what's most beautiful about this imagined world is how it reminds us that even our real Earth, with its single faithful moon, is extraordinary. Tonight, when you see that familiar silver disk hanging in the sky, you might feel a small gratitude for its steady presence, its predictable rhythm, the way it's been quietly organizing the tides and lighting the darkness for billions of years. And if you found any peace in these wandering thoughts, if the gentle science helped your mind settle into rest, feel free to follow us for more quiet journeys through the wonders of the universe. Sleep well under whatever moons may watch over your dreams.